Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board! Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Prime Wangus steaks and chops. I said Prime Wangus. It's actually Prime Angus. You know, folks, it's live. Anything could happen here. And I never cut anything out. That's the best part about it. So you know it's legit. Anyway, Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops from UppercutChops.com. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Gotta love this. All right, welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, plus our independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Wow Cable Television, and Hotel TV, gaining about 4 million impressions per hour. We're everywhere, folks. You can't get away from us. Also, welcome into everybody that's watching on Facebook, all of our friends and family there. We have a very special guest right from the very top. In fact, let's let him introduce himself.
Hi. Hello, everybody. This is Don Most here, or you might remember me as Donnie Most, or Ralph from Happy Days. It's good to be with everybody, and you, Sal, especially.
Thank you. Very few people say that, and I appreciate that. No, just kidding. But anyway, you know, as I made a mistake at the very top, which is great, we think of those outtakes for this show or that show, or think about when you're on stage. By the way, folks, in case you don't know, Don is a very accomplished singer and is a big stage presence. He's done a lot of stuff on stage, and I have to tell you that this guy knows how to hold an audience. In fact, you can find him on all the YouTube videos and whatnot, but you can also see him appear at this location, that location. But Don, when we make mistakes on air or on stage, I mean, you can't undo it. It is what it is. You just kind of have to go with it, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the beauty of live, theater, the same thing. I've done a lot of live theater. And then when I perform, the music live, it's that same thing. There's a little bit of, being on the tightrope, working without a net, so to speak, right?
Right. Well, that's how they used to do it at the circus, right? There was never a net below. And
right.
Imagine being a trapeze artist with no netting below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a scary proposition. But there's a magic about live performance that, you just can't, you try capturing it on film, and but it's not the same as being right there with somebody, and anything can happen.
And it's funny you say that, because that's one of my favorite phrases for this program. It's live, anything can happen. And so truly, anything can happen. Somebody could call in. We've had crazy things happen in the middle of the program. I've had the power go out in the building. Unbelievable things have happened. So guess what, folks? Truly, anything can happen here. And that is the beauty of a live performance. And so who knows, maybe we'll get Don to sing a little bit for us, too, a little a cappella. You never know. So, Don, you've been at this singing for a long time. Obviously, on television and film, you've been in the rodeo for many, many, many years. And you've made a transition largely into performing on stage. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I've totally transitioned into music solely. I've actually been very busy in the last few years. Been busier than I have in quite a while with doing a lot of film work. I've done like 6, 7, 8 films in the last 3 years, and just did one a few months ago. All different kinds of roles, very different. One going from playing a pastor to a polygamist, literally from one to the other.
Wow.
And then everything in between, playing a prison guard, and then playing the owner of a minor league hockey team, and then playing a career criminal. And I just finished this one where, based on a true story in the 1920s during the bootlegging period when there was all this vying for control, and I play the head of one of the mobs. I play the head of the Jewish mob. They were called the Purple Gang. True story. So I had to put the music a little bit on the sidelines while I was doing the film work. So I'm kind of like juggling both. But what I did do is, see, I used to sing and do this when I was young, before Happy Days, before I was acting. I was performing in the Catskill Mountains, upstate New York, a resort area, and they had all these hotels with nightclubs. So one summer I was in this nightclub review, playing all of those clubs during the whole summer. But then I shifted that's when I really shifted, went into acting, and I got very serious on that and put the music aside. Then, of course, that took up the next 40 years or something like that. I did some musical theater, so there was utilized the singing to some degree. But it was about 9 years ago when I said, I'm going to do what I always wanted to do, because I love the jazz standards, swing, big band, and nightclubs kind of stuff, and the American Songbook. So I decided to put an act together and I started playing jazz clubs in LA and New York, and this was about 9 years ago. So that was, I guess, a transition that you're talking about. And I've been doing it, fairly regularly over these last 9 years, except, like I said, then I would take, it might be a month off while I'm doing a film, or it might be 2 months, or it might be a week, so it varies.
So how many film projects in the last few years have you been involved with?
Well, like I was saying, I'd say about 7 or 8, so something like that. Not all of them have come out, but a bunch have. Recently, there was one called County Line, No Fear. I did with Tom Wopat, and then another. I did a Western called Far Haven that's out, and these can be found on Amazon and Tubi. A Western, Far Haven. Another film called Lost Heart, which I play a pastor but a kind of eccentric pastor. And that's on Amazon, I believe, and Tubi. Man's Best Friend, I play a defense attorney defending a wounded vet. So a lot of different kinds of, all different roles, and more dramatic than comedy. Not like, I was staying away from comedy. It just so happened that most of them have been drama.
So when you make a transition from this role to that role, for everybody that doesn't understand what it's like to be in front of a camera, whether it's television or film, you obviously have to kind of dive into that character. How do you put your brain in that? Well, let's just say, for example, you've done X prior to, maybe you're a prison guard, right? And so you have to prepare to be this individual on camera. And then let's just say in the next week or something, now you're a pastor, right? So I would imagine there's a big learning curve for some of the roles that you don't necessarily know much about, whatever that may be. Maybe because most people don't know what it's like to be a prison guard. I certainly wouldn't. But what would that take from a preparation standpoint on your side to really get into that character?
Yeah, well, there's like two main points, I guess, that I follow. It's like from the inside out and the outside in, as you would say. Meaning, first, I would try to see if there's anything in my own life that I can relate to what is going on. I mean, if you're playing a murderer, it's not like, I have to go out and experience.
Right. Oh no. Right.
Or try to remember remember what it was like, because you don't have that experience, but you have to find a way to relate to the emotion behind it. So was there ever a time in my life where I felt this kind of rage, or was there ever a time in my life that I felt a certain way towards this person, so that it's personalized and that you know it, and it will elicit some kind of response in yourself. Then that's from the inside out. The outside in is then you might have to do a lot of research, where if you look at footage of whatever you could find footage of prison guards or in jails, that sort of thing, and you research that and watch movies or watch footage or read about it, and then you get something from the outside to work towards and then the inside coming out, so that you have both.
Well, I look at it this way. With the different roles that you're going to play here in our last 30 seconds, there is so much to learn, and people don't really realize what it takes to do the job that you're doing. And they wonder, well, hey, why does it cost this much money to go to see a film or to download it or whatever? Well, because there's a lot of work involved here, folks. It's not just something, well, hey, I'm an actor or I'm a singer, I'm just going to get on stage. You got to prepare for this. In fact, we got to prepare to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Last more to come here with Don Most. And Don is an incredible singer. And I'll tell you what, we come back, we're going to bring back some of that music. In fact, we're going to bring you back to some of that music. So don't go anywhere. Lots more to come right here on the Sports Circus.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 702-799-9935 at 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935, or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Shining reflections of those New York bars. George M. Cohen, another Times Square sky. Could it be I'm dancing on a New York high? Norman Rockwell, you're the most. Paint me in the picture post. Oh, New York, you've opened my eyes. Stepping out on Broadway, and I'm high as the skies. Rogers and Hammerstein, and it's plain to see why. Could it be I'm dancing on a New York high?
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live here in Las Vegas. Not necessarily New York, but we're listening to New York High by the great Don Most. A nice round of applause for Don. Of course, he gets the super applause. In fact, we're going to come back to that song in just a moment. And back here on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from Honolulu all the way down to South Florida, a whole bunch of points in between. Big hello to our friends over in Southern California listening in, and they may be listening in, watching CNBC and NBC, as well as right here in Las Vegas, KJPT, Jackpot Radio, WDJY in Atlanta, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves, over in Auburn, Alabama, from Montgomery all the way to Columbus, Georgia, down in South Florida, WBGY, and that nice yachting community of Marco Island and Naples. Boy, it's just beautiful there. And all the other points in between. Everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Wow Cable TV, and Hotel TV, welcome in. Back here with Don Most. We're listening to some of his music here. As a matter of fact, Don's got some music. We're going to kind of leave it play a little bit quiet in the background here. And we'll let Don talk over his own music just because we can. Don, what are we listening to?
Yeah, well, that's the title track to my new CD called New York High. Most of the songs on the CD are standards, like jazz standards, and a couple of covers from the 70s as well. But this is the one original song. And it's, I heard it and it really got me. And being in New York, I grew up in New York, and it felt like another anthem to New York, like the song that, of course, Sinatra made famous, New York, New York. So it felt like maybe the next generation's version of that. So I'm glad we recorded it, and I was telling you earlier, we released the single in the UK, and there's a chart called the Heritage Chart that's based in the UK. It goes out to 80 countries, and the song is doing great. It's number 8. We just cracked the top 10. It's moving up, and it's up number 8 on the chart there. So people could go check that out. It's called the Heritage Chart. And Don,
it's got a great sound to it. It has a timeless sound to it. Yeah.
It almost felt like a standard that I never knew about. It felt like a standard. Mm-hmm. It has that, like you said, it has that same very reminiscent of a certain style with the big band sound and a little bit of swing in there. So it really caught my attention when I heard it. And the crazy thing is, written by a Brit, 2 Brits, Mike Reed, who's a very well-known DJ over in the UK, and Max Restano, his writing partner. So, you'd think it was a real diehard New Yorker that wrote the song, but it's two Brits that wrote it, but it's really good, and I'm excited about how well it's doing so far.
Well, what I like about it is, we think of New York, right, Frank Sinatra, but that's a little bit slower pace, where this is a little bit more upbeat. It kind of gets you moving a little bit. It gives you a different feel entirely. It's almost like a second anthem for New York, right? Because you think of New York and Frank, but I like this because it's a little bit more groovy. And you can actually get up and move around to it a little bit instead of just, if for all you cigar smokers or whatever, bellowing smoke out of your mouth, you could actually dance with somebody to this, which makes it more pleasing to me.
Yeah, it definitely has a bounce to it and a lilt. That's probably one of the things that grabbed me the most. It was the feel of it. And then the producer, because I heard a demo, which was a good demo, but then my producer, Tony Manter, got these great musicians and his arranger, guitar player, Tom Wilde. They did a great job of doing an arrangement that just cooks. It just has that in the pocket kind of feel, and like you said, it has you want it, you could get up and dance to it, and that's like you were talking earlier, that the music like from the 40s, the swing era, and that kind of jump and jive and wail and swing. It's very joyous. It's very joyful kind of music, and we need some of that right now.
I would agree. And we think about, okay, first of all, why are we talking music and this kind of thing on a sports-driven show? Well, because first of all, how many athletes, when they're done playing, I'm a former athlete, I can't play anymore, I can't throw a baseball anymore, I've got a blown-out shoulder, and it's been that way for a long time. But reality is, when you're used to playing under the lights, and you're playing in front of a crowd, and you like the roar of the crowd, you like the energy, you just get up for it, you just feel it. Well, the reality is a lot of people from the athletic world like to migrate into what? Entertainment, right? Because technically they're entertainers, but they happen to be very good in sports. Well, guys like Don have been doing this for decades and decades and decades, right? From even before Happy Days as Ralph Malph, all the way to today, and he's still doing it. I grew up with this guy, and I still dig talking. I like talking to him, but I dig listening to his music because I saw him on television like everybody else, right, in Happy Days and other shows and movies and whatnot. But when you see somebody that has the ability to transition, whether it's from sports to music or from music to sports, right? And I remember, Don, that we talked a little bit about that in the prior episode that you were on, that you were actually the athlete of the cast from Happy Days. You were the best athlete on the field, were you not?
Well, some people have said that. I don't know.
It's okay. It's just us here. It doesn't matter, if you know what I mean.
I was up there, in the top 2 or 3, I would say for sure. Because when I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I was so into baseball, especially, and I played a lot, and wanted to be, that was my first dream, to be a baseball player. But then, I was sort of kind of short, and when I turned 13, I grew a little bit, but I never had I think. I knew somewhere deep that I was never going to be able to go all the way, so to speak, to like make it to the majors or something like that. So, and then I got caught up. I got the acting bug and the singing bug, and I switched. My dream went from being the baseball player to being an actor and then a singer.
Well, look at it this way. It's a dream. And look, being a New York Yankee in the first place, it's pretty tough to do, right? If everybody could do it, I mean, there'd be a lot more. But reality is, you've got to be very special. And the same thing goes with having discipline to learn how to memorize lines, recite lines, but also live the lines as well. Think about the characters that you've played in our last couple of minutes of the segment here. Think about the characters you played, the wide range we talked about in the first segment, right? And then you take all that experience and say, okay, well, maybe we were not doing this live, but now we're singing live in the same way as athletes on a field or on a court or on the ice. Everything is live, and you're going to make mistakes. It is what it is. But talking about this on a sports show is interesting because a lot of people seem to forget that, look, there is practice when you're playing sports, right? That's why we go to practice. Well, you have rehearsals, right? This kind of thing, right? So we have these comparisons. And if you don't rehearse, chances are you may not perform that well. If you don't practice, likely you're not going to perform very well. How much rehearsal time does it take you to prepare for one live show?
Well, it varies also depending on the production. I've done theater where I rehearsed for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. And then I've done them where I've only had like a week's rehearsal, or 10 days. So it depends. But it's so important to have that foundation because you have to not only to learn the lines, but there's staging involved. And then, of course, the characterization and making sure that, that the understanding and connection to the material and all that we talked about. So it's hugely important. But I do find that there are similarities in when you're talking about athletes performing and actors or singers performing, because when it comes down to the performance, you have to let go of all of that practice and rehearsal, and then you have to just be in the moment and perform. And it's very similar. The athletes have to be it's the zen of performing, whether it be sports or entertainment.
It really is, and a lot of people seem to miss that. But tell you what, when we come back from break, I want to pick up a little bit more on that, and we're going to take you out to some original music from Don Most, New York High. Don't go anywhere, folks.
Waldorf Hotel. Could it be I've fallen under a New York spell? Downtown Manhattan's like a shower of stars, shining reflections of those New York bars. George M. Cohan, another Times Square sky. Could it be I'm dancing on a New York high? Norman Rockwell, you're the most. Paint me in the picture post. Oh, stepping out on Broadway, and I'm high as the skies. Rogers and Hammerstein, and it's plain to see why. Could it be I'm dancing on a New York high? Coney Island Beach for me. Marlon Brando teaching me. Oh, New York, thanks for the ride. I'm on the Staten Island ferry, going out with a tide. Hey, New York, the apple of my I'm dancing on a New York high. Could it be I'm dancing on a New York high?
You know, Don, what I like about that And this is just my own personal preference. We got 30 seconds left. I just let it run through commercial break. I don't care. So I'm going to bring it back to a different one. I'm going to bring it back to If I Had You.
If I Had You?
Yeah.
If I Had You, or probably If I Had You would be good now.
Yeah, I'm going to do that one. And what was the other one? Without a Song. Okay.
Either one.
I'm going to do with If I Had You. So what I like about it, real quick, and I got 5 seconds here. What I like is that there's not a lot of just melody. There's actually words. Some people write music, and all it is what? It's just song. Here we go.
I could show the world how to smile. I could be glad all of the while. I could change the gray skies to blue if I had you. I could leave the old days behind, leave all my pals. I'd never mind. I could start my life anew if I had you. I could climb the snow-capped mountain, sail the mighty ocean wide. I could cross the burning desert if I had you by my side. I could be a king, dear, uncrowned, humble or poor, rich or renowned.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus, and we are listening to If I Had You from the great Don Most. You may remember him as Ralph Malph from Happy Days and a bunch of other films and whatnot. This guy's an incredible stage entertainer. And by the way, folks, you can pick up any of those CDs that he has. And Don, I think they're available on what platforms? Where can they be found?
Well, they definitely could be downloaded on iTunes, but people could also, hear them on the streaming ones like Spotify and Apple Music, YouTube, and there's a whole bunch of others. But that's a good selection right there, I think. I hope.
Yeah, I think it is too. A nice round of applause for that. But the reality is, folks, look, we all need something pleasant in our lives, right? So we think about music, we think about the happy things. And Don makes happy music, generally speaking. And that's what I like. It's not when you, think about this, folks. When you listen to certain music, whatever genre, whatever, the reality is there's not a lot of lyrical content. A lot of repetitive, same lines, or maybe you'll get 2 verses out of somebody, then you'll get a long bridge that basically repeats itself 2 or 3 times, and then you'll get a chorus that is, I wouldn't say not well thought out, but I would say there's not much substance to it. In this particular case, Don's music, what I like about it is that you get good lyrical value to it. And it's not where I'm going to throw a line here, throw a line here. There are certain people that I've heard on the radio and watched on television. I'm like, well, geez, they've only sang 3 or 4 lines, and that's it. There's nothing else, and they're selling multi-platinum, whatever. How? I don't get it. But what I do get is when music grabs you, and it holds you, and then it stays in your head all day long. Why? Because there's real lyrical value. And Don creates that kind of music, and that's what I like about his music. And let's face it, he's back here talking about his music. He's done a bunch of stuff on TV and film, but I want to talk about music. So Don, take it over from there about filling up that song. We'll just say whether 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever the heck it is. Filling it up with lyrical value instead of just melody, and then that's it.
Yeah, well, what I love about the songs that I love to do, which, like I mentioned, are the standards, the great jazz standards, and they stand the test of time because those songs were so well constructed. I mean, the writing was so fantastic. Wonderful lyrics. They could be witty. They could be romantic. They could be very sophisticated, and they could be funny. And then the construction, the music, the structure of the music and the melodies also were so terrific that the combination of those two things is what I love so much about them. Yes, the content, the lyrics are so great, but I also, some of the way that they weave in and out the music, I just always was drawn to that style, even as a kid. And for a while, it kind of faded, in the 70s, when I was doing Happy Days. That kind of music was starting to be looked upon as like my parents' music or grandparents' music. But luckily, it had a resurgence again in the 80s, and it's gotten back into favor. And that's one of the reasons I decided I'm going back to doing it, because it was okay to do this music again. And now new generations are discovering it, and it's got a whole new life, and I think it's going to continue.
Well, what I like about the idea of the online streaming platforms is that people of all ages will find it. They'll listen to it. They're like, hey, you know what? That's pretty groovy. I dig that. Well, I don't want my friends to hear me listening to it, but they're like, you know what? I don't even care, because it's good, and there's good meaning, and there's good melody. And as long as you're in happy keys when you're talking to happy people, like the key of G, right? This kind of thing. People, if you don't know anything about music, go learn. You need to, because you're listening to it. It's already in your soul. But I think there's a value in taking those music classes, Don. And think back to when you were a kid, when I was a kid. I know growing up in Chicago, we were very cultured. We went to the symphony orchestra. We'd go once a month, whatever. We'd go to the art museums. We did that. I think a lot of the kids on the West Coast kind of miss some of that, and those in other parts of rural America. But now we could bring that to them, maybe, for example, through music that you make.
Yeah. It was important. It still is important. I'm very grateful that I was exposed to a lot of it growing up in New York. Going to a symphony, or going to the theater, and going to the museums, and even without realizing it, you absorb that sort of stuff on a subconscious level, and it might come back, and you find yourself drawn to it, and you don't know why later on. But you need to be exposed to all of that, and not all of us were, not everyone was lucky enough to have that. But so I'm very grateful for having been exposed to that sort of thing, as you were.
Right. Just, having the theater, having the music, having the great sports, having all of those elements. It was a very enriching younger life, which only gives you the ability to bring that to other people's lives that maybe didn't have that. And that's kind of what I like about growing up in the big city kind of idea. Yeah, I mean, we have issues like everybody else, but end of day, I'm here in Las Vegas. Tell me Las Vegas doesn't have issues. Of course, Vegas has issues, but it's the entertainment capital of the world. And if it doesn't happen here, where else does it happen? Or if it hasn't happened here, it's going to happen here. I mean, whether it's Formula One to great music and concerts and sports, we have all the sports now at this point, right? We just got the Oakland A's here. And so end of day, we think about as cities grow, hopefully some of those people from other cities and other environments bring their backgrounds, their culture, their pieces of their lives for the others to grow upon. And with all of your background, growing up in New York where you did, you had a very enriching environment. And look at your success from television to film to music. Now you get to affect the lives multiple generations in multiple ways. Take a minute and talk about that.
Wow, that's a fairly complex subject. Yeah, I mean, I do feel very grateful that I grew up in New York, where all that is there. All of that was around us. I mean, even the school trips you would take. You'd go to these, whether it be the museums or maybe a concert. If you, let's say, you couldn't afford it, your parents couldn't afford it. At least in the public schools, you would be exposed to it, and you being in that city, you couldn't help but be exposed to it and absorb it. And I also often felt that I wonder how much did that affect me? How much did that influence me? And how much do I have to attribute that background, that upbringing, to what my success, or what I was able to become as an actor and a singer? I often wondered about, it's that nature versus nurture argument, and it's one that's still debated all the time. But I think being in that environment was very enriching, as you said.
Yeah, I would agree that I would think that we are rather fortunate to be in those environments. And let's face it, with today's streaming platforms and all the internet, everything, there are possibilities for everybody in every corner of the earth. And let's face it, people now have satellite uplinks for their internet and whatnot, so they can get it anywhere. It doesn't really matter, I guess, unless you're at the South Pole, which no one seems to be able to get to. But it doesn't really matter. I don't think we're going to be headed to the South Pole anytime soon. Folks, we're here with Don Most, and Don is an incredibly talented singer and stage performer and an actor. He's done it all. And in fact, we're going to take you out to If I Had You Now by Don Most. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
I could be a king, dear, uncrowned, humble or poor, rich or renowned.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. Hi, pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people, but when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize. There's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. 1 ball, 1 strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said that I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch, foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about our congressman being crooked, here's a pitch, foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products that don't do what they represent to do?
They told me when they hired me it was a temporary job. Born and raised in St. Louis, and you can imagine the Cardinals were my favorite team from the day I could remember. And all of a sudden, the miracle of life, I'm broadcasting Card games. And I own the town and broadcast them for 25 years, and I thought they're going to give me a gold watch. and they gave me a pink slip. Then I went out to work for Charlie Finley for a year, and that's par for the course. Came to Chicago, and I was with the White Sox 11 years, and now with the Cubs. Never missed a game, never missed a time at bat, never missed a half inning that I was supposed to do. You know, Chicago is such a marvelous city. Hey, we got some Chicago people. You know, you never succeed in this business until you've had the experience of working with a terrible hangover. Not until you've been able to come through with flying colors under those circumstances can you consider yourself a professional. Lord knows, I've had more than my share of hangovers.
There's a drive, way back, it might be, it could be, and it is. Holy cow, this crowd is wild.
Hello, Jack McDowell here, Black Jack McDowell, and you're watching the Sports Circus, which is totally cool. So you have a great time watching. Have some fun.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are our podcast, available on all podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify or Google or Amazon or Audible or whatever, iHeart, Stitcher, whatever. We're there. Pandora. Yeah. Recently, I saw that we were added to Pandora. Nonetheless, that's for everybody not watching on television right now on our Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Wow Cable TV affiliates, as well as Hotel TV in 650,000 rooms from coast to coast. And so also, folks, make sure you check out the partners page at thesportscircus.com. Some of those have been with us since the very beginning. And I tell you what, folks, years and years of doing this, there's a lot of commitment involved, just like with Don Most in our last few segments. Right? There's a lot of commitment involved in doing a show for years and years and years and thousands of shows, which we've done. But the reality is we have to have reps. We talked about that with Don, right? And let's face it, from the very beginning, things were a little bit rough when we started the show, but it's gotten better over time. At least I believe it has, if you know what I mean. Nonetheless, the show has gotten better. The guest quality has been good from day one with Leonard Marshall, two-time Super Bowl champion. Leonard Marshall should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, by the way. Another New Yorker, right? Great guy. Leonard's a wonderful guy, a very close friend of the circus. And, of course, I mean, his other New York giant line mates are there. Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, Carl Banks, right? And he should be in there as well. But we think about where we started all the way back to show number one with Leonard Marshall, even to today with Don Most, right? A couple of New Yorkers, right? Actually, Leonard's originally from Louisiana, but nonetheless, end of day, you've got guys that have ties back to New York, right? I'm here in Las Vegas. The reality is this is the entertainment capital of the world. So whether it's sports, music, or whatnot, we do it here on this show. So one of our partners, the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, have been with us since the very beginning. Folks, make sure you check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming events and games. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. And by the way, folks, College of Southern Nevada Athletics is not just what they have at College of Southern Nevada. They actually have very good educational structure. The structure is very good. So make sure you check them out at csn.edu, if I'm not mistaken as well. That's for College of Southern Nevada. Nonetheless, so Don Most was with us for the last few segments here on the circus. Now, Don's been with us before. And, of course, I asked him about, well, do we want this? Do we want that? What should we stay away from? And he's such an easygoing guy. Such an easygoing guy that he's like, whatever. I really don't have these do not talk about topics and whatnot. Whereas a lot of people that come out of the program, well, we don't want to talk about this or we don't want to talk about that. That's okay. Don is such an easygoing guy. He's like, hey, look, And I said, look, I want to promote your music because your music, it's kind of groovy. It's got a good sound to it. Don's got a great voice, by the way. He's got a big range, too. So he can sing the ballads, but he can also sing those upbeat songs, too. He's a really good stage presence. And just go ahead and hit him up on YouTube, and you can check him out. Or you can go to realdonniemost.com and check out what he's done there, too. Lots of great work. And so it's hard being an actor, a director, a musician, right? A stage act, and not. It's hard to do that. Think about what we're doing here, folks. Right? It's a sports show. It started out as a sports show. What do we have? We have reps. Get your reps in. Get your reps, right? You have the quarterbacks. What do they need? They need reps. If they don't get any on the field, what's going to happen? Well, chances are you're going to have INT, pick six. You're going to have all kinds of bad stuff. Same thing on a baseball field. What if the pitcher doesn't get his bullpen sessions in? Right? Well, number one, he can hurt his arm. Number two, he could be wild. Or he could be wild in the strike zone. Technically, you're getting the ball over the plate, but maybe you're not getting the calls for strikes because you have no consistency. The reality is practice equals consistency. So whether you're reading lines for a stage play or for a television show or a film, or you're singing, you've got to have your rehearsals. You've got to go over and over. And we heard a few years back, we brought Kevin Green on the show, rest his soul. Kevin Green, a very, very intense competitor, right? Hall of Famer, 160-odd sacks, whatever it was, in National Football League. Kevin played with the Rams, the Steelers, won Super Bowls, and also even with the Carolina Panthers. Kevin was one of those guys that he said, I'm going to kind of try to quote him. Kevin said, if you want to be good on game day or game day speed on Sunday, you got to play on game day speed on Thursday, right, during practice. And it's the same thing when it comes to singing or playing an instrument or whatever you're practicing at. You want to be the best, but you got to practice. And I've noticed in many cases, I don't see little league teams out there practicing much. Football, yeah, you see it a little bit more. But I don't see little league teams practicing much. I'm a former baseball player, and I scratch my head. I'm like, why aren't you out practicing? You've got to practice, right? And that's part of the idea of getting great. If you want to be great, you better start acting great, which means you better get out there, eat, sleep, and think your sport, or eat, sleep, and think your craft. And if you're not doing it, you're making a big mistake and you're selling yourself short because somebody else is out there practicing and practicing and practicing. In fact, we did a really interesting show with, it was Mr. Hoffman. Trying to think of his first name. Nonetheless, this gentleman had so much good to offer. He's a billionaire business guy, and he's one of those guys that say, you know what? I'm going to keep doing it and doing it. I'm trying to find an audio clip for you here. I'm going to keep doing it until it's done right. And that's the part that I love about those that are super, and I mean super competitive, but more importantly, they're super perfectionist. And those super perfectionists, what have they done? Well, I'll tell you what they've done. They've put the time in to learn their craft. And I don't care what sport or what you're doing. I don't care if it's acting or cooking or whatnot. We see those cooking shows all the time on television. But at the end of the day, what do we have? We have practice that needs to be done. If the practice isn't done, well, guess what? You're sort of selling yourself short. And that's not cool. Because at the end of the day, you've got to really bust your butt and be practicing hard. And if you don't, well, somebody else, again, is going to step in, take your position, whatever that means, and you're going to end up in a position where you're not going to be excelling. And you don't want to be that person not excelling because somebody else will take that spot from you. There's no question. This is what happens in sports. It happens in business. It happens everywhere. But some people just seem to, well, I'll get around to it next time. No, you're not going to get around to it next time because somebody else will step in and take that right from you, basically pick the opportunity right out of your pocket. And when you get your pocket picked, that's not fun. And when you get your career pocket picked, That's really not fun. Or some people don't necessarily want to see you advance and do this and that. But at the end of the day, what are we after? We're after practicing and practicing and practicing, because why? Practice makes perfect. And that's very true. For all you that don't realize it, believe me, it is absolutely legit. And you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to basically be the odd man or woman out, because that's not cool. So it even goes that way for television and radio for sports shows, right? We've had our ups and downs with these things. Absolutely. And that's okay, because ups and downs are things you learn from. And if you don't learn from them, well, you're going to make the same damn mistake over and over and over and over. And it's not fun. It really isn't fun. I mean, let's face it. Who likes to keep living? It's like that Groundhog Day movie, right? So you had the event that just kind of keeps happening over and over and over. And that's not fun. So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to give people variety. We like variety. Variety is interesting. And let's face it, if we don't have variety, what do we end up with? We end up with the same dog and pony show over and over. And you're like, wow, why do I have to hear that again? Well, I just heard that on this station or on that network, on this network. You hear the same story over and over, but without any fire in the belly, right? They don't give you that because they're worried about losing their sponsors. Well, I'm going to lose this or I'm going to lose that. And that really doesn't make for good entertainment. It doesn't make for good content.
This is Sal Tuzzolino from the Sports Circus at the San Gennaro Feast over
San Gennaro Fest. I did all kinds of fun interviews over the years and years. There was one in particular that I was looking for, and it had to deal with winning and preparation and practice. And I'm doing this on the fly, folks. So listen, if you don't like the way it sounds, my apologies. But hey, listen, sometimes we have to do what we have to do. But I think about getting those interviews that are almost, I wouldn't say life-changing. Now, Don Most is a guy that has shown in our first three segments of the show that he is remarkably adaptable, right? From sports to TV to film to stage to music. So it goes round and around. And I love the fact that you have people that have these abilities to do these wonderful things. Now, I can't find the segment that I was looking for, but I can assure you, folks, there are some great interviews out there that we've done here on this program in the thousands of episodes that we've done. And believe me, there are great lessons to be learned in these episodes too. It's not just all fun and games. We try to make it fun and games, but ultimately the fun and games eventually comes out of it. And there is some real substance there. So for those that believe that, well, it's just a sports show, listen, it may be a sports show, but this is very different than the other sports and entertainment shows that are out there in the first place. And it's different in the way that the content is disseminated, to the way that the content is developed and expanded upon or expounded, right? So we all have to think about, how do we make ourselves better in the grand scheme of things? And that's what we try to do here on the circus. So we bring you variety, because variety matters. Otherwise, well, hey, you're looking forward to this and that. Well, it's going to be this report and that report you're going to get from this school or this team or that team. And maybe some people like that. That's cool. But that's not what we do here. We develop content segment by segment. This way you get a better breadth of the actual content itself. And maybe you might learn something in there. If not, you can laugh with us, or I don't know, maybe you can laugh at us. Either way, it doesn't matter. That's going to do it for the show today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. Big thanks to Don Most, Ralph Mel from Happy Days and television and film and music. Big thanks for Don Most joining us here. And we'll see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
That's That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.